Can you hear me?
Yes.
Welcome. All right, I'm going to get started. We've started recording. If there's any questions before we get going, then I'll just start. All right. Right, welcome to the second public teaching for gardeners and growers on the 11th of December. What we'll do is just briefly go through the options that people have to do the weekly agricultural teachings workshop. These are the private workshops that one can just apply. And you'll know there's no fee for this particular workshop. The other options is to apply to join the SSI Education program, and this gives you access to the entire private teachings from the end of 2015 up until present. We highly recommend it because there's a lot of valuable information there. And of course the 3 books as well. There's layers and layers of information in those books. Just a brief background on how we'll do the teaching format is we'll give you a theoretical teaching on different concepts, and then I'll just go back through those slides to see if there's any questions and discussions on that. And in the second part, we'll introduce some practical applications that one can use with this plasma. And then we'll have any questions and discussions after that as well. So we'll start with our 11th of December workshop. What I'll do is just a summary of what we tackled last week, or 2 weeks ago. We introduced the concept of vertical people, which have been the plant world. Also how the plants are interacting with the fields. So it's a totally different understanding as we've had before in terms of the matter. And then the third concept, that plants are living reactors and are able to interact with these fields and create the elements, minerals that they need internally. And Klaus also gave us a bit of insight into his CO2 testing and interesting compost ring method. For today's workshop, what we're going to try and do is to reinforce some of those 3 concepts that we'd introduced last week and show how they're working in nature. So the first one I'll do is the joy of weeds. Why does CO2 GANS work? Fires in nature, and the practical side being the liquid plasma rings and using those around your house. So the first one being the joy of weeds, and I know the title sounds a bit not right because we've always had this hate relationship with weeds in our gardens. But what I'll hope to show you today is a totally different understanding of how we need to approach our weeds in garden. So when we look at our current view of weeds, most of us will assume that they are pretty useless. We must poison them, get rid of them, and they really serve no purpose in our gardens. And somehow they always seem to grow where we don't want them to grow, right in the middle of our veggie patch that we've just cleared, or where we created a nice flower bed, up pops the weeds. But when you start looking, they're always the first plants to grow on a barren land. When you've cleared the land, they're the first ones to pop up. And they seem to have the ability to survive in very harsh conditions because you don't water them, you just leave them alone, but somehow they will grow and multiply. What we need to first step back and look at is that weeds, also plants, and therefore also living entities and part of the vertical people. They are also living reactors, and they have a very special role in nature. What we first have to look at is, the old saying, as above, so below. This works very well in nature as well, because when you have a look at what's in your soil is what creates what's above your soil. And the two always interact. And what nature is always trying to do is to create a balance between what's in the soil and what's above the ground. And that's the whole objective for nature. When we look at exposed soils from farming, so a farmer's just gone and you've cleared a patch of land that you're wanting to grow, nature will want to cover that open soil as fast as possible because it's like an open wound on our skin and it's unbalanced. The energy fields are unbalanced. So what happens to do this, the weeds appear first as they have the ability to grow under very harsh conditions and to grow very fast. We know how fast the weeds grow. We can plow up a piece of land and within a few days you've got the weeds coming up and growing already. They're able to spread their seeds very quickly because they grow so fast, and in no time your whole land is covered in weeds, or your whole garden bed is covered in weeds. And this is fantastic, as you will see later on. When I've taken an example of two common weeds in the gardens, there's the dandelion and stinging nettle. Both of these weeds are also used in herbal medicines. So when you have a look at just a breakdown of some of the chemical compositions, if you look at dandelion, it has calcium, phosphorus, iron, sodium, and potassium. When you look at stinging nettle, it's also got calcium, magnesium, iron, zinc, and copper, and potassium as well. So these two weeds, as we call them, have a lot of mineral content in them. So when we look at an exposed soil, the soil, which is also a living entity, will encourage the weeds to grow first and multiply because they're the strongest and will grow first. If we just think of and imagine ourselves walking through an open field where there's no ground, where there's no plants on it, it'll give us a totally different feeling than walking through a field that has 100 variety of different plants and flowers. It gives us a nicer feeling when we walk through those fields. And that all comes down to the magnetic fields that we're getting from the various plants. So when you're looking at a barren piece of soil, you're getting very little fields, except basically only those that are coming from the ground and not from your vegetation and your plants. The type of weeds that also grow up will vary from area to area and are dependent upon your soil conditions. Essentially, the weeds are nature's way of trying to restore that balance very quickly because nature hates an open, barren piece of land. Will always try to cover that barren land. So what you're seeing is by allowing the weeds to multiply, die back into the soils, seed again, and repeat the cycle, nature is adding back into the soils a huge amounts of elements, amino acids, and organic materials. This in turn will start feeding the organisms in your soil. They'll multiply and do their work, freeing up additional elements in the soils. And these changes in the fields signal other seeds that the conditions have changed, they are now better, and so you're going to get a more variety of seeds that are going to start to germinate in your field. Over time, the weeds will reduce and other varieties of plants will begin to grow. These other varieties of plants also add to your different elements, your amino acids, resulting in a soil structure that is full of life. So when you have your living soil is balanced, you'll also have a living plant variety on the surface that is also coming into balance. So we essentially get back to the same principles where everything is interacting with everything else to find this balance. And that's what nature is always striving for. So a summary of that approach to the weeds, nature is far more intelligent than we give it credit for. Weeds have been given a very bad reputation because of our lack of understanding of what nature is trying to do through the weeds. So I think it's also time that we rename the weeds as healers, because they all want to tend to heal the land, and as they're also used in herbal medicine to heal people and animals. And you'll often hear some stories where a person who falls ill, and then they'll start finding certain weeds that will pop up in their gardens. And when they look into those weeds and what they've traditionally been used in herbal medicine, a lot of the time those weeds will turn out to be something that the people can use as a cure. You've heard this story many, many times. So the practical approach to weeds, what I've tried to get across here is that if you've got an open piece of land and you start seeing your weeds growing, they're going to take over in no time and start multiplying, and you're going to have a whole field full of weeds. And if you allow those to grow and die back down, obviously they will multiply, come back again. And over time, looking at a couple of years, you'll start seeing other weeds that'll come through. And eventually, after a few years, you will see that those weeds don't come back anymore. You'll have a whole variety of other plants that have grown on that field. And your weeds are not there anymore. A lot of research has been done on this over the years. It's a totally different approach, the traditional sort of farming approach. But now that we begin to understand how the plasma works with the plants, we now see how the weeds, because of their high mineral content, are always adding back to the soil. So when we can have a look at our weeds in the garden, there's several ways we can approach this to use them. We can just pull them out and leave them on the soil, because they'll decompose back into your soil, adding that nutrition back into your soil. You can collect your various weeds that you've identified, and then you can make a GANS of them, just like you can make a food GANS. You can then drink that water from the GANS that you've made, and you can also use that water to water your garden. Because if you look at the composition of those two plants there, they have a lot of minerals in there. So it will be very good for you if you create a food GANS out of that one and feed it back to your garden. And if you really don't want weeds at all in your garden, then what you can do is you can pull them out and burn them. And then this ash will contain the elements and carbon from the plants, and you can place this ash back onto your garden. So we have to start understanding and researching the weeds that we have in our garden, because often they will give us an indication of what's happening with our health, and gives you an indication that your soils are also out of balance. All right, so I hope you understood that and given a new insight in terms of weeds or the healing plants. The next step is I want to go in and have a look at just a bit of the basic sciences of why we use the CO2 GANS in nature and on plants, and why it actually works. To start off with, let's just have a look at what CO2 is and look at the atomic mass of CO2. It's made up of 1 carbon and 2 oxygens. So when we look at the atomic mass of carbon, it's 12, and the atomic mass of oxygen is 16. When we add that up, we get a total of 44. So essentially what we're saying is that CO2 has a magnetical and gravitational field strength of 44. So that's a different way of saying the atomic mass is to more or less say the field strength of the CO2. When we have a look at the breakdown of the elements of plants and animals, plants composed of oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen, roughly about 96%. These percentage ratios will vary from plant to plant, but that's the general guideline. When you look at humans and animals, we're also composed of oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen, around 96%. So that's all that we are made up of, and they combine to form different amino acids and combinations in your body. So when we have a look at the amino acid structure, we're looking at COHAN, which is carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, and these combine to form your various amino acids and proteins in the body of the plants and the animals. So when you look at, we've got CO2, which has carbon and oxygen, and when you have a look at the COHANs in the plants, it's also carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, and for the animals as well. So there is your link, because the carbon in the CO2 is going to link up with the carbon in your plants and in the humans and animals, and the same with the oxygen. So that gives you your link as to why the CO2 is going to work on the plants and the body. So when we look at the field strength of CO2 is 44, and we do the same with the basic amino acid structure. We'll look at the atomic mass of carbon, which was 12, oxygen 16, hydrogen 1, and nitrogen 14, gives us a total of 43. So you can see how the CO2 with the Mangrove field of 44 links up very nicely with the field strength of your basic amino acid of 43. Right. The other thing I'm going to look at today is looking at forest fires and understanding from a plasma perspective. Because what we have to start doing is, once we start understanding how this plasma works, it's nature that's going to show us all the practical applications. And when we start really looking at nature and delving into how it really works, we'll find that we come across the same concepts that we've learned in plasma in nature all the time. And this is one of them in terms of forest fires, which I'll go through and explain. When you have a forest fire, we always see huge growth in vegetation after a fire. You know, the fire will come through and burn everything black. And after a good rain, and within a few weeks, you're having huge growth and lush vegetation that is taken over where that forest fire was. And the plasma will explain what is happening. So when a fire burns through a forest and starts burning your trees and your plants, we're left with a pile of ash. What is left of the plants after the fire is your carbon and your minerals, because your hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen were all burnt off and released during the fire. So you're left with the minerals and the carbon from the plants, and these would be in a nano state. So these would be on the ground as your ash. Then we add the rainwater. Now your rainwater is going to mix with the ash from the fire, and as we know, you can use ash from a fire as your caustic soda. Now this penetrates into the top layers of your soils with the rain. So what you're creating is a slightly alkaline condition in your top layers of your soils. This alkaline condition will react with minerals that's already been in your soil, producing additional nanomaterials of your elements. This is the same process we want to make food gases, is we have to create the nanomaterials before we can make a GANS of it. And this is what nature is doing here as well, is creating the nanomaterials through the alkaline condition first. Then we know that all soils contain various salts, sodium, potassium, and magnesium salts in different combinations. So now we have these nanomaterials with various salts in the soil with the rainwater. And what we produce is then the GANS of the various elements of the soil. And this is exactly the same process as we have in our little box when we're creating the CO2 or our copper GANSes, is because we first create the nanomaterial, and then with the salt, we create the GANS of it. And this is exactly what nature is doing from the perspective of the fire. So what you're getting is that this process has improved the soils because now you've got those GANSes available to your plant. It allows the soil biology to start thriving, which in turn provides an abundant array of fields for the new plant growth to use, because you've got this huge array of different materials in your soil that have all been GANSed and can provide those fields. In addition to the rainwater, we also have the added fields of nitrogen and amino acids coming through the rainwater, which all add to the growth of the plants. So essentially, it's another way of nature restoring balance through a fire. And that's why we get huge growth seen in forests, that where fire's gone through. It's because you have all this available minerals for the plants that can use the fields of all these different minerals and grow because they've got enough food that they can use. So that just gives you a different understanding of and explains how one needs to start looking through the lens of plasma to look at nature and understand what is really going on. Are there any questions or discussions around that?
I don't think there are many panelists.
I'm going to, if anybody wants to unmute, I'm battling to find the Q&A, so I can't answer any questions that somebody might type.
I've got an observation, Jimmy.
Yes.
That answers a lot of background for me. In fact, I believe when the Spanish first went up the Amazon River, they noticed that the Aztecs were burning piles of what appeared to be wood, but apparently it's all vegetable matter, and they were spreading the contents over the countryside, over their gardens.
Yes.
That is extraordinary. You've just given me additional insight to what they were doing. Thanks very much.
No problems. I mean, it also explains why, you know, in the old gardeners from 50, 60 years ago, they always used to take the ash from their fires and spread the ash on their gardens. And now we understand why it works. So we just have to look at nature and copy.
I do that now, and it makes the soil extremely rich. I thought it was down to what they call carbon sequestration. Is that a term that we could use in this particular instance?
I'm not understanding your question there, Ross.
The actual, I've used the ash over the countryside, but I noticed the farmers plough their diesel fumes back into the ground, and they call it carbon sequestration, which apparently enriches the soil. That's what they say.
Yeah, I suppose, yes, because they just, you know, when you analyze the ash of plants, then you just generally got a lot of carbons, which they sort of measured, but you have a lot of the minerals in a nano state. And I think everybody's just focused on the carbon because of the whole global warming story. So it's a way of putting the carbon back into the soils.
Just one thing, mostly farmers actually till the soil and turn the weeds back into the ground. Is this not advocated in a plasma science, or is it advocated?
Just repeat your question there, Ross.
Farmers generally till the weeds with their ploughs back into the soil.
Yes.
Is that more or less gaining the same results as burning the weeds and leaving the ash on the soil as in plasma technology?
Yes, it is. You know, when you're ploughing like a live plant back into the soils, besides the carbon and the minerals that you're putting in, you're also putting in the organic matter and your amino acids. So from my perspective, it's probably better to put back in the whole plant and not just the ash, because you're losing a lot of your amino acids.
I just wanted to add, Ross, that I think that we've got to get away, though, from the ploughing of the soil, because we are damaging all the organisms by ploughing. So it's a whole conundrum of how to actually do it. It's almost like if you lay them flat and use them as a mulch instead, or, you know, it all depends on what weed it is and whether it's flowering and ready to seed to give more, you know, if you don't want them seeding, or if you can get them early, or, you know, there's many ways. Small farmers I see these days have these flamethrower devices where they actually burn their weeds. You know, if they're doing a market garden size type thing, they literally will burn their weeds with like a flamethrower.
Yes.
You know, it's.
I actually haven't tilled my soil for about 30 years on my fruit orchards. I virtually cut the tops of the weeds and compost them. So tilling is a no-go for me. Thank you, Lisa.
You know, what I feel is, for something like an orchard, for example, if you go and throw in 20 or 30 really good ground covery type things and treat them really well, you'll get rid of your weeds anyway, because they won't be able to grow. They'll be pushed out.
Actually, you're right, because I've noticed clover coming up, and I like to encourage clover because of their nitrogen fixing properties.
Yes. Yeah, clovers are wonderful, actually, and you can get quite a few different varieties. And you know, we sowed a whole lot of things like that at one stage into a patch of land that we had, and that patch continues to every summer be more lush now than the paddock grass that was there before. So yes, it helps to fix other things into the soils.
Thank you.
Another way to look at this with a different understanding is when you've got some orchards, is because I've often see it around here with a lot of macadamia orchards, is they'll go around and spray, particularly around the trees, the Roundup to kill all the grass around the trees, because our old understanding is that anything growing under the trees, be it grass or weeds, is going to steal the nutrient from our tree. You know, that's been the attitude. Whereas now we can look at it differently and say, well, if I plant a whole variety of different clovers and different plants and herbs around my orchard, you know, around the roots of your orchards, and then all you're doing is you're just going around and mowing them, and then you're you're putting all that nutrition back into the soils, you're only going to end up with better trees and better fruit. So it's a totally different approach one has to look at.
Also, from our understanding now, a lot of the trees, most of what they're taking up is through the fields coming down from the atmosphere. And so, you know, the old biodynamic way of they'll paint their trees, the bark of the tree with certain nutrients, some kind of a poo. And so, yes, that is quite good as well. And we're learning that if we provide in the branches, if we start creating plasma devices in the branches, the trees will get fed very well like that too.
Yes, thank you.
All right, if there's any other questions, I said I can't seem to get my Q&A working, so if anybody's posting any questions, we might.
Let's see a way to post questions.
So,
oh, there's a raised hand. I see somebody's raised hand. I don't know from where. Dominique. Dominique has raised her hand. You can just put her up.
no.
I'll get you onto panelist, Dominique.
Okay. Sorry, I'm still learning this, trying to drive this Zoom. I just can't seem to promote anybody else.
Just drop somebody if you can, and then somebody else up. You take somebody off? No. I don't know how. Sorry, guys.
Sorry, I'm just not able to answer that question.
We see the little hand there, but we don't see anything else. Let's see. Okay. Promote. Okay,
All right.
There we go. Now we've figured it out.
We've managed to put you through, Dominique, I think. Do you want to unmute yourself, Dominique?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I'm Dominique.
Hi, can you just speak a bit louder?
Oh, yes. I just... Is it better now?
Yeah, that's a bit better, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody, or a good day for all people around the world. I am Dominique from France, and I have two questions today. I want really to thank you for your great job. It's very clear, and I have a garden in my house. This morning I understand I can play with weeds, and it's very interesting. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm also in charge for the French teaching, and I think I will use your slide because they are very great. Yes, if you accept this.
It's no problem. You can share.
Thank you very much. Maybe my question is in relationship to the ethic with burning. What you think about all the life in the garden when we burn? I feel that all the animal and also entity are not so quiet with the fire. What do you think?
I think sort of fire is a cycle of life, and look at a big bushfire. Those animals that can escape will escape, but everything else will be burnt, and and basically be sacrificed for the future generations. And so all those fields will go into the next growth. So as we know, nothing is ever lost. It just gets transformed from one form to another.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right.
Yes. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Lita. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dominic.
Thank you.
Shall we go on to the next bit? Okay, which is my bit, creating torus fields around our plants. So I'm going to discuss the liquid plasma rings, and I'm sure some of you have seen the rings floating about with Dr. Rodrigo, and we're using them at the moment to look at a bit of the health benefits. But as you know, rings can be used for very many things because they have very, very strong energy. So quite a while back, I started playing with bracelets for humans. And so I've made quite a lot now and had very, very positive results. I'll share with you the method for making these, and they can be scaled up. And they can be used for around tree branches or around stems of trees and around trunks. So what I found is that the energy centers in the middle of the ring, and so we need to look at these quite seriously in relation into specifically nice big trees. So this is how I make my rings. This is all stuff that I can get in Australia, so obviously you might need to improvise, but usually you can get the most similar things. We use clear vinyl tubing, and it's used for irrigation. This size is a 5mm. And so what I use to join them together is to go one size down, which is the 3mm, or you can use one size up, which is usually the 8mm. Then what happens is they'll fit either inside or outside the ring. So here I use one size down so that I make it tidy. So we cut a small joiner piece once we've jammed the one side into the 5mm. We'll push it in about 10mm in, leave about 10mm sticking out, and to be able to use it as the little joiner in between. So we use a syringe of liquid plasma of your choice to fill, and you gently release the bubbles as you go. Please be careful with this because otherwise it usually shoots out the other end. You need to release the air as you're going. And once it's full, you carefully push the ends together without spilling. And I normally cut a little piece of copper wire and then wrap it around each end so that you make it really tight and it keeps a grip and it's safe from pulling apart. So another suggestion that I've used quite a lot on all my animals is I've created tubes with irrigation joiners because these can come apart and be closed again to get over animals' heads and to make sure it can fit snugly. So what I normally do is I put a little bit of tissue paper in the tubes because then I can wet the tissue paper, and then when I'm opening and closing, everything's not spilling out. So I've used it a lot on my dogs, and they even my chickens get a plasma ring when they're not too healthy. and I've seen very positive results on them too. Just on my one chicken, which was normally the chicken that is picked on the most, because, you know, with chickens there's always a pecking order, and I started giving that chicken some zinc in a small tube. I put that around her neck, and she stood up for herself a lot more after that, so she wasn't picked on as much. So it actually really does work. And my little dog Poochie, he's 14 now, and before I used the ring on him, I made him a CO2 and zinc ring. He was basically sleeping most of the day, and just tottering around a little bit and not very active at all. Within 2 days of putting the neckband on him, he became a different dog. He was running around the garden with my other little dog, barking madly at everything in sight, and even got a new lease on life in terms of jumping my little girl. So he obviously had decided that he was a man again. So yes, very strong results with the collars for the dogs. The other thing that we've seen with the health recently are the double tubes. I did this one a while back with zinc in the central tube and CO2 on the outer tube. It has very, very strong fields, and if you just go a couple of sizes up for the outer ring and get a size bigger joiner for the outer ring as well, then you can get a nice flow through, so that there is a good clearance between the inner ring and the outer ring. And something to test if somebody is really inventive is to try and set this up whereby you connect each ring to a pump and flow in the two pumps, the two different types of liquid plasmas, going in opposite directions to each other. So that's a test for somebody if they'd like to try. Here we go. These are the ones on our tree. This is, we've decided to put it on, because it doesn't have a single trunk, we've decided to put it on either side of the branches, two rings. And hopefully what will happen is that the tubes will create a flow and a conduit. The tree actually becomes the conduit of the flow. And this is a very old, maybe 30-year-old apricot tree that is very unhappy. It's in a tropical, semi-tropical area where apricot trees don't normally grow well. So I'm going to see if I can do anything with it. I don't know if this will help it at all, because it's really almost at the end of its life and very full of all sorts of growths and weird things. So I'll let you know how it goes in the future. We've even tried very tiny, thin little tubes. I don't know if you can see the little black tube there. And this is in a pot, and it's around a little lemon tree, a mini lemon tree that's still trying to grow. So I thought, well, let me just put it on and see. And I can tell a difference. The lemon tree is getting stronger. And funnily enough, this ground cover type the plants around the base, where that little ring is, which has a minimal amount of liquid plasma in it, those leaves are definitely bigger than the ones around the rest of the plant. So it's having a direct result. The fields are having a direct result right there next to the ring. So yes, I think bigger rings are needed. These are a little bit too small, but I tried it anyway. And the reason was because the first thing I ever did was take a bracelet, and I suspended it over a bowl of water, and I froze it. And if you look at the donut shape of the torus field there, when I actually took my ice experiment out, I flipped it over, popped it out of the glass, and immediately the ice block broke in half. And whether it was still not frozen in the center, or whether it was an air bubble in the center, I'm not sure, because it happened so quickly. But as you can see, there's a definite torus field energy that created such a strong field in the center that the ice wouldn't form there. So that was just another couple of pictures and where the hole was, because I was trying to figure out whether this had created some kind of an extra plasma field there, and I think this is what it does. So even just a small bracelet is very, very strong, and you can imagine if you put that on your arm or you put that around a branch or a tree, you're really concentrating the fields of that thing. And what I've found as well is a friend of mine, I've given him a zinc bracelet. He's a lot more stable. So I'm having really good effects. The one lady, I gave her 2 bracelets, a CO2 and a zinc, and she put one on either arm, and her back pain disappeared. And she was very keen to tell me that not only did her back pain disappear, but her watch battery, which had been losing time and going flat, suddenly came right again. So there's many side effects to wearing GANS bracelets. So yeah, another bit of question and discussion time. And I see somebody else has got the hand raised here. I will have a look. Let's see, where did you push the last time? There we go. Okay, I've promoted a couple more to panelists. So if anybody would like to ask any questions, go right ahead.
Hello, Lisa.
Hello, can you just speak up? I can't hear very well.
Can you hear me now?
No, it's still a bit soft.
All right, something wrong with my microphone or something. Can you hear me now?
A little bit better, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the knowledge, if you let me put the camera on, about the tubes.
Just hold on 1 second.
You can start.
Nah, it says you still need to give me permission.
Not allow panelists to start video. There.
Hello.
Hi.
This is my health cup that I'm making. So I got these tubes, like you are saying. I've been doing this for a while already, but I do it in a coil. So it goes from here up, and then it goes down over it again and joins up with the ends together. So it's an infinity loop. And,
Okay.
if we make it into a coil like this, or like Maglev coils, but with the hoses, put the GANS in it, it should be a lot more powerful. We'll give it emotion. So it's like gonna be a static reactor, you know. This is like a Maglev boxes I've been making. And inside it will have another one, yeah? Gravitational. And they go again. They have their own gravitational magnetical too. Powerful.
Are you going to pump the water through those?
Yes, I put it on the pumps and I spin it different direction, and I also spin the water that's in the middle. Just the water I spin also. And I purify water this way. I've been working on a big one now. I bought a big pump, which is a lot stronger. And I want to do it like I don't know if you guys heard of Victor Schauberger. He's been doing those vortexes with the water.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've been trying to create the same kind of a thing. It's so I want to spin water in here in this glass tube, and I want to spin outside water in this. You know, everything will go down, and whatever gases I will use, that will be the water. I'll let the gas settle down, and I'll use the top water for the food for the plants. I've been working a bit of agriculture too lately. So yeah, I just wanted to add this knowledge.
Yes,
Thanks.
no, that's fantastic. Thanks. What energy are you getting from those tubes when you're drinking?
I haven't. I just finished doing this, so I'm gonna start. I didn't have CO2 GANS before.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Anybody else?
One question, please, Lisa. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I noticed those tubes you took a photograph of are slightly misty. Are you using CO2 GANS as well as plasma water in those?
No. What happens is if you do a tube, especially the double tube, it nanocoats itself. The GANS will nanocoat it. So it changes color quite dramatically. And it will literally nanocoat. What I do with the tubes though is I do put literally a little tiny bit of sprinkle of the powder just to keep it sort of active. Very, very tiny little bit just to keep it energized all the time. Because I do find that the liquid plasma does seem to eventually want to not be as effective anymore. So if you do add a few sprinkles of the GANS, it will work quite well.
So you're saying that the plasma mix actually nanocoats the inside of the plastic?
Yes, especially the double tubes that I've done, because I've done quite a few different types of double tubing, and especially where I have created a 90-degree double tube. I'll just go and grab it for you and actually show you. So Jimmy can chat to you a second. I'll just run and get it.
May I ask a question, please?
Yes, welcome.
Yes, hello, this is Véronique from France. You're talking about apricot trees interests me because I have made an experiment on my apricot trees, which are quite old. And what I did is I put 3 different GANS in 3 different little bottles, and I buried them in the earth at the bottom of the tree. And I was wondering what you think about that, just to, in fact, because I had lots of liquid sort of running from the tree because it's old, and I was wondering if what you think about this method.
Oh, I think it's great because you're adding it into the soils, the root structure, so you will be improving the soils with the fields as well as providing the fields for the trees. How long ago did you do it?
Only a few weeks ago.
Sorry?
Only a few weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And,
have you taken photographs?
No, I have buried the bottles, but haven't actually taken a photograph. But I was wondering if I should also put a bracelet around the branches or around the tree, around the trunk. Should I also put a bracelet?
I'm sorry, can you speak a bit louder?
Put a bracelet?
Oh, bracelet, yes.
Yes, and what kind of What kind of
Anything
gas?
in the tree. You can put a bracelet. You can hang a bottle. You can, you know, the bracelet seems to be stronger though. But also try, and if you do put something in the branches, put two, so that the fields can go between the two, and you know, create a field across.
Yes.
But CO2 is really good, and then also depending on your type of soil, we use a lot of GANS because it has all the minerals, and so all your various minerals are really good for your trees too.
But mainly we use CO2, don't we?
Yeah, and the CO2 and the zinc as well. The plants need the zinc too.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Lisa, would you use the amino acids at all? The COHN?
What I normally do, Ross, is every time I make my ganses, I make sure that I shake in. I actually put the lid onto my jar, and I collect as much as I can for a start, and then I literally shake the GANS up so that it collects a lot of the aminos into itself, and so all my ganses have a lot of aminos already in them.
Thank you.
So yeah, if you don't put any aminos in your GANS, then I suggest you put some aminos in with your GANS as well.
Good, thank you very much.
Can I suggest one thing here?
Sure.
The water that we spill out, the salt water, when once we made a GANS and we want to wash it, the top water that we washed off the amino acids, we usually throw out. But I use caustic soda, just like we used to make it to make the GANS. I use the same thing to make the GANS out of that salt water, which has a lot of amino acids in it too, and that could be good for, you know, for food too, for the plants.
Thanks, B.
Thank you.
Is there a way to show?
Starting video.
Okay. No, we're not. I'm just trying to see if I can get the video going here. And I see a little light, but I don't see myself, so I'm not quite sure. No, it's not working. Maybe I can do it from this one. Okay.
I don't put your.
No.
If I stop share, maybe you can do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
there we go. No, that's.
You.
Where am I? Okay, I'm trying to find myself, guys. There we are. No.
Skip time. Doing this one.
No. I don't
There we
know
go.
where I am.
There we go.
Okay. Here we are. No. This is very odd. It's okay. I'm gonna let me take it off. I can't seem. There we go. I can't seem to see myself.
It's up and to your right, Lisa.
It just wasn't responding to anything. I think maybe the bandwidth is bad. So somehow, because this is a second device, it's just not actually featuring.
That's right. Go up a bit to your right a bit.
You just
No.
between your two face, at the level, it's that will be correct.
Okay, so now, okay. Oh, there we go.
Yes.
There we go. Okay, Jimmy got it. All right, so it is on that one. Okay. Okay. So, I don't know if you can see that. It is totally nano-coated. It's been a couple of months, and it's excessively strong when you feel in between. See, it is actually, the bandwidth is strange.
Yeah.
So it's a very strong field in between here. There we go. And I had to put the crystal in the middle too. So it's quite incredible. It takes about 2 weeks for the nano coating to come up and show, and then it just gets a stronger and stronger nano coating. My big tube has just started, and about 2 weeks ago, and that I'm actually lying in my dog's bed, so that he gets a bit of extra oomph at night.
You have one tube inside another in that arrangement.
Yes.
Yes, they're both double tubes, and with different various ganses. I actually don't remember. It was the first one I did, and I didn't write it down. I just threw different ones in. It was, I think, the basic 4 ganses that I normally do. And yes, I think because they're in this sort of 90-degree formation, they're even stronger than on their own.
That central spiral has a crystal in it, you say. Is that quartz?
Yes, it's a plain quartz, a rough quartz crystal, yes.
And it's sitting in GANS, CO2 GANS, is that correct?
Yeah, I did dip it in the GANS, and the whole thing.
Looks really good from here anyway.
Yes, it's pretty strong, you know. I did it just to see what it would do, and I hang all of these things around the house, and it gives the place a really nice feel. So
That's your reactors then. They act as reactors, correct?
yes, they do. They are.
A friend of ours he does a lot of healing work, and he's made a lot of these doubled tubes like that in a 90-degree configuration, and he just gets people to put their hands in the middle there, and or he places it in different positions over their bodies, and he's finding very, very good results out of it. So it's just a case of playing with all sorts of things and seeing what we get.
That's an excellent device.
Yeah, and I think these, you know, you don't have to do the crystal, but I think these also hanging in the branches of trees. And the trick is, I think as well, from what we've understood, is because the fields travel from one device to another, and if you load them with a little bit, you know, if you're going to do, say, 3 or 4 something to hang in your tree, always put a little bit of each GANS in your other device, if you understand, so that they can always link up. So if you put, let's say, CO2 in one, and then you do another one with CH3, put a drop of CH3 in the CO2 one, and put a drop of CO2 in the CH3 one, because then they can talk, because they have connection, and so it makes for a stronger field in between. So just for future, when you start making all of these contraptions, just try and, you know, make sure that you link them up. So if you make a whole lot of liquid plasmas, just make sure you have enough to fill into each device as you're going.
Thank you, Lisa.
Anybody else?
Any other questions that people might have?
Let me just go back here. Okay, there's a hand raised. Let me have a look. Who's there? John. Okay, John, I'll promote you to panelist. There we go.
Hello, John.
You'll need to unmute yourself.
Do you use 100% GANS, the CO2, in your tubes, or do you use 50% water, 50% CO2 GANS, or is it all GANS water?
Sorry, just speak up again, John, and repeat your question.
Is it all GANS water in the nanotubes, in the tubing, or is it all plasma water?
Okay, so what you do is you use the liquid plasma, which is the water off the top of the GANS.
The water.
And then, yeah, so if you've made your GANS and you've got it's all settled down at the bottom, you're going to use the water off the top. That's clear. But what I normally do is I literally take, with a syringe, I'll take a couple of flakes and I'll put them in with, so that it can keep on energizing the water, because the fields, when they are used by something else, the strength of them changes, so you need to replenish. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yes, you said a couple flakes. Is that dry GANS?
No, the wet stuff, you know, it's just literally, yeah, it's a tiny little tip of the syringe, just a tiny little bit. We are starting to play now with the dry as well. Maybe the dry might work even stronger. So it's worth, you know, trying trial and error and seeing. So yeah, because the dry stuff is very strong. I had a carbon stick that I'd taken out of solution, and I wasn't sure if it was actually CO2, and I wanted to know if it was salt. So I asked Jimmy to have a little taste on his finger, and his tongue was numb for a day.
Do you wash?
That's pretty strong.
Do you not wash your CO2 before you put it in the? Do you not wash your CO2 before you put it in the tubes, the rings?
Yes, you do need to wash it. You need to get the salt out.
Okay.
So yeah, it was just to see whether it was actually CO2, because you know, normally if you pull something out and it gets white on it, you're not sure if it's salt or if it's CO2. So yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else that might have a question? Otherwise, that's as far as we have for today. And considering that in 2 weeks' time, our next workshop is going to be on the 25th of December, I didn't think we'd have anybody participating on Christmas Day. So we've skipped that one, and our next one will only be on the 8th of January next year.
Does anybody have anything to add or to show or to suggest?
Lisa, I noticed you are recording this program. Is that available? Are those recorded programs available, or do we subscribe to that with a cost, please?
No, the videos are directly taken up by the KF SSI, and
Yes.
then they have it available on their YouTube channel, which is open to public.
I see. So they're available on YouTube?
Yes, yes, they're public teachings. They'll be available. The first one is available already, and all of these will be available.
Thank you.
I did have one more question. Did you ever try putting the CO2 GANs on a tip of a cut leaf? I seem to recall that was on one of the KF workshops.
No, we haven't actually tried that one, John. No, I haven't seen that. Is it just to stop it from sort of going brownish, or?
I think I stopped it from going brown, but I think I recall that it started to regrow actually on the leaf. I have to try that myself. I haven't tried it.
Yeah, I know some of our friends have picked some leaves from his garden, and he's just put them into a little bottle on his table, and he filled that bottle with CO2 water. And they must have been on his table for 2 or 3 months before they eventually died off. So it extends your life of whatever plant that you use. So, you know, if there's any florists out there that want to give it a try as well to see whether it should make your plants that you've cut last much longer.
I think with cut flowers, they won't last as long because their natural cycle is to bloom and die, whereas leaves, I think, will last a lot longer because their natural cycle is to stay growing for a lot longer. And they'll do their natural cycle when given the fields to grow on. So, yeah, you know, and what we've shown before with our radish tests show that like your shelf life on your fruits and vegetables is also dramatically extended. We will be doing one of those show and tells soon in January with all our trials we've done in our systems and what we've found so far. But we thought we'd start with the more along the lines of what's going on with the plants before we start showing all the tests. Dead here. Okay, there we go.
Any other questions? Are we happy to call it a day? All right.
What? There's a raised hand. Let me have a look. Okay. There we go. Somebody there. I didn't hear a ding dong. There we go. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
You can hear us, all right?
Yes, we can.
Well, it's Tricia Neal from Northland, New Zealand here, and we'd like to say how much we're enjoying the workshop, and we feel very privileged to be part of this whole new paradigm shift. We live in a Mongolian, we're 72, and we have been living in a Mongolian yurt for a year on Bren's organic property, and we're a little short of power with our solar system, and so Neil's building a McGrath, and we're working with the GANS outside, and we find it so much better than trying to work inside. It's all just wonderful, and we also we use the word hew, which is a love song to God, and we hew around the property, and beside that and the GANS, we're just about left the planet a few times. We call our yurt our little spaceship because it's round and it's got little feet on it, and I think we've just about left several times. And what else can I say, Neil? What do you want to say?
Well, you're going to share that
that
photograph?
We've got 3 photographs we'd like to share with you.
We're a bit amateurish with this Zoom business.
No problem.
Let me see. We go to here, I think. Oh no! Wait a minute. We've got to share.
We have
How
to
do we
stop
show
sharing.
a share a screen?
Yes, try.
Share a screen. Right. Okay. Let's go. Now. Here we go. Share. I think. Is that share? Share screen. Now, we've got to get onto here and here and here. I don't know whether that'll take. Can you see anything?
Not yet.
Not yet. It sometimes takes that. No.
I wonder if we've got to select it somehow. Right? Anyway, what Trish has done is she's got the tree up the back, and there's little spheres hanging all over it with the GANSes in it.
Great.
It's our Christmas tree. It's our GANS Christmas tree. It's actually an apple tree. All our fruit trees are quite young, so and they're all growing very vigorously. If you can
There we
see.
go. We see you.
We see your picture now.
Good.
Oh, lovely. Quite a lot of Christmas cheer.
That's our worm farm just next door in the bathtub.
I think that's the first GANS Christmas tree.
Yeah. And you probably think we're in Australia when you see the big gum trees in the background.
Yes.
And we work very much with nature, and we say, may the blessings be, when we want to send the kikuyu grass, which you'll know from South Africa. I've asked it to live outside the fence and not in, and I asked where all the dandelions, and we've now got a section full of dandelions. So it's all very positive energy, and I call it, I call the CO2 the white light, because I think it is the God energy, and the blue one, the blue light. Oh, there's the yurt. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
And the flowers.
And we have a big skylight at in the top of the yurt. You can see that. We call it the Eye of God, and it's great just lying in bed and looking at the stars and the moon. And we're doing what you suggested. We're putting in lots of mixed seeds and flower seeds and so on, and you can see the results here.
Okay, lovely. Yes.
Yeah, we spray it regularly with the CO2 GANS and sometimes a CH3 and the zinc oxide.
Yes.
Oh, and also I pulled a ligament in my knee about 6 weeks, and I've had a copper coil just below the knee and a CO2 GANS bracelet around next to it, just below the knee, and it took away all the pain, and now I feel that I'm just about healed with it. I also had a GANS pack on my head. I couldn't quite work out where to put it for the knee, but I put quite a big one on, and I felt that helped as well, and it helped me to sleep. And the other thing that's happened for me is my hair's going back from grey to brown. I didn't ask for it, but it seems to be happening.
Well, it's doing it to me too, so don't worry.
Okay. So
I had a little bit of grey floating through the blonde, and it's going. And you know, funnily enough, it's going back to my childhood blonde color, not my mousy blonde that I turned into as an adult. So, yes, it's the color I really always wanted to be, that lovely striking blonde. So.
Well, strange things happen, don't they? Well, thanks very much, you guys. It's really, you know, it's really a great privilege to be part of the movement and to view all the efforts that you're going to.
We're going. Oh, also we're going to have a summer solstice party here, and we're going to. We've got the local transition towns group coming, and quite a few people, and we've got our spaceship research sign up and that, and so we're looking forward to that, and it should be quite interesting.
Wonderful.
Okay, then enjoy the holiday.
Yes.
Thank you. You
Merry
too.
Christmas.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Keep up the good work for it. Thank you.
What do we go here?
Well, there we are. There, we've been up.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. Anybody else? Before we wrap it up, we should have done a whole lot more stuff. We would have gone on longer, but yes, we thought it was a lot at the time. So yes, guys, anybody else to raise the hand or to say anything before we close up for the day?
All right. Well, thanks for attending, and we hope you learned something today. And enjoy. Hello?
Certainly did. We did learn something, and thank you very much, you two. You're doing a wonderful job.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We just like to share. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful Christmas, and we'll see you all in January.